I'm so good.
No, it feels...
Hello, is everyone with me? Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Epiphany beer. Wait one moment. Here we are, we're back, we're in. Hi guys, welcome to Epiphany beer event. I am Mary and I am the beer buyer for Black Heart and Sparrows. And I'm really lucky today to be joined by some brilliant brewers. Guy from Sailor's Grave, and we've got Ashley here from Stomping Ground. Hey guys.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah,
Very
really
well. Awesome.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having us.
Pleased to.
Have you?
This is an event that we have run once or twice before in the past, and it's one of my favourite beer events to run. I think working in the beer industry, and I'm sure this is the same for you guys, you get to talk a lot about beer, and you get to talk a lot about the technical sides of beer, and a lot about brewing, and a lot about making beer. Something that is my favourite thing about the beer industry is the people in the beer industry. And I think this is a cool event because we really get to kind of get to know who you are, and not just like how you made the beer, but actually why you made a beer and what inspired you. So I'm really excited to kick it off. So I think some people are drinking along at home and will have their beers with them. We might get started with Chris and Gab if you guys are happy. So we're starting first of all with the beer that kind of inspired you to brew, or the beer that inspired you to want to be a brewer, and what got you into it. So what have we got?
We've got Durang Double X bitter. There's also a Triple X bitter in the family.
Yep.
Classic beer. Probably not the very first beer that switched me on to craft beer, but a really defining moment for, I guess, realising that beer, one, doesn't have to follow fashion, can strike out on its own and do its own thing and be immensely enjoyable and contradictory. There's something about this beer that if you described it to me, I probably wouldn't choose to drink it if I'd never had it before.
Yep.
The experience of drinking it is wonderful. It's very bitter, slightly funky, full-bodied, and has personality. I think what I love about it is it has personality. It's a beer that stands on its own. It's a very, very hoppy beer, very bitter beer, but not in a classic kind of IPA or US style at all.
Where did you have this beer for the first time?
In Australia. The first time I had it would have been probably out here on the farm, I'd say.
Yeah, you probably would have brought it back from one of your trips to Melbourne.
Yes.
And then every time he came back from Melbourne, he would have, a bottle or two of this. And I'm sure you're probably the only buyer of it.
No, seriously, it's not a very popular beer. I know, talking to some other guys who had managed to get a keg of it and had it on tap in Melbourne, and they were like, we love the beer, but nobody else seems to really like it. But
I love it. I actually didn't know too much about this beer. I obviously knew D-Rank, but this particular beer, I had never heard of it. And when I contacted you and reached out and was like, what beer? It just kind of popped up that a rep was like, I've got this beer. What do you think about it? And I was like, that is exactly what I need. So how do you feel like this beer has kind of shaped the way you have brewed and worked?
I think this, along with a lot of other experiences, especially some experiences visiting, researching and breweries in America, and meeting different personalities and people doing things different ways. The biggest thing that we like to keep in our mind is to follow what we love rather than what we feel we should be doing. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes you make beers that are your favourite beers and they're not the most popular beers that you make. But the most important thing is to kind of stick to your guns with the integrity of what you love, and what you want to make, rather than pressure to follow the market or fashion or
It's funny though, like those beers that you do really love and they don't sell very well. But like you will find people that just love those beers like crazy. Like we made a beer a couple times with like a lot of weeds in it. It was like spring in our farmhouse range. And it was such a polarizing beer, but like the people who did love it, they loved it. Like people would buy kegs of it and like drink the weedy beer.
Did they get confused and think it had weed in it? Or...
Certainly smelled a bit like that.
Oh.
It's so green. Like it's so I've made like a barrel beer with the with yeast from nettles, which is kind of along the same lines of it, and it's on its like third generation, and it still tastes like smack in the face weeds. It's amazing.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. So good.
We went off. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. You're free to go off topic. That's what this is a little bit about. You also, when I asked you the question about a couple of beers that inspired you, there was a couple that you mentioned. Do you?
Yep. One was Allagash Interlude.
I think that was the beer.
That was the beer.
That was the beer. Like we were in America. I think we were in Athens,
Georgia.
In a car park. I was actually camping in a car park of another brewery.
Yes.
And we just had that, and it was probably one of the first sour beers. Oh no, we'd had a lot of like Lost Abbey and stuff before that.
Yeah.
But it was like that beer just kind of floored us, and we were
the depth and complexity of it. Yeah.
Probably a third of the way through our trip, and it's just like completely changed our trip in the US. Like
who we wanted to meet and learn from. So yeah, that was a real pivot. Definitely that beer.
So it was obviously a hard beer to get though.
Yes. So was that before you started your brewery?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you go on a bit of a trip of like exploration to try places that kind of shape what you wanted to do?
Yes, 3 months in an RV, did a big loop around the US, hardly scratched the surface, but met lots of amazing brewers. People like Jason from Allagash and Ron Jeffries from Jolly Pumpkin. Logston Farmhouse was another great one, but just a lot of really inspiring and generous with their knowledge brewers. Everyone was doing everything differently, and that was the best bit about the trip. It was almost being given that permission to just follow your own path. There were so many people were doing it so many different ways.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's so important in the beer industry, just to diversify it, and because I think there will be trends that come through, and that can be fantastic because people really perfect a style and work on a style. But then seeing people just being like, no, I want to do this, I think it's fantastic. It's so cool. And it's what makes it interesting as well.
I do drink a lot of hazies though.
Yeah, I think we all do. Should we move on to the next beer?
Yep.
You're up, Asher.
Good. I'm quite enjoying this one. Sorry.
Sorry if I'm.
No, it's all right. I was thinking about this beforehand. I thought, bloody hell, 6 beers an hour.
I know it's a bit of a
multiple glasses.
There's 2 of us. It's easier.
I'm trying that approach. I tried that the other night. Chris and I did one. Did Ale Stars the other night. I was kind of a ring-in. Chris was originally meant to be there. I was just kind of like a last-minute thing. But I finished every beer that we had over that while, and although it was only 4 beers, it still made me fairly animated by the end of the evening. But
it's a rookie error.
yeah, exactly. I'm going to be a bit more careful this time.
You go. Your Epiphany beer. What's up first?
Okay, cool. So it's obviously Ben Spoke's been out for about maybe a bit more than a year, or maybe 18 months or 2 years more than Stomping Grounds. 2 years probably, I think, actually. But so the Crankshaft isn't necessarily my Epiphany beer. I gave you guys a bit of a curveball when I said that my Epiphany beer was their hand pump Wigan Pen Pale Ale that used to only be able to buy on the hand pump at the Wigan Pen Brewery in Canberra. I went to uni in Canberra in 2003, from 2003 to 2007. And that was my local. That was the first pub off campus. So you'd walk across campus, there'd be uni bar, and then the next bar was Wing and Pen. And then, the rest is Civic. And so you'd have other pubs than that. So we'd always start our night there, and we had weeknights as well. We had many a night where we'd walk across campus, freezing cold, tweed jackets on, and go in there, read the paper, do a bit of uni work, talk a lot of rubbish, and drink pints and pints of beautiful beer. And the hand pump pale ale was just, for me, it was just something I'd always start on and always finish on, because it was just so balanced, so beautiful, had a beautiful yeast character. He used to change the hops up pretty regularly, and it was just so soft and drinkable. And it's like, it's a real contrast to the Durank, and I really like the Durank there too. It's great, the double X bitter. But this was a beer that I thought, and maybe a little bit different from the styles that Sailor's Grave do. This is a sort of beer that has got a lot of flavour, but has got super drinkability, and I'd love to see in pubs all across Australia.
Yeah.
Similarly, the Ben Spoke crankshaft is beautiful. It's well balanced. I find it probably a little bit too easy to drink, given that it's 6%. It's got a lot of fruit character, pretty minimal bitterness, but the hand pump pale ale didn't actually have really strong bitterness either. It just had a really juicy fruit character. I don't know how much you dry hop that beer then, but yeah, similarly beautiful beer. It's the same brewer. He went from Wig and Pen to start Ben Spoke. So yeah, I've always been a fan of his beers, and so I thought, well, the easiest thing to get a commercial example of that's made by the same brewer is Crankshaft, and it's the first beer. I think it's the first beer one of the first beers it is the first beer they put in can, and it was probably one of the first beers they brewed. Their biggest seller by far.
It's a great beer.
Yeah, it's delicious. Yeah,
it's so
it is very easy drinking too. And do you feel like this has been quite an influence on the way you brew?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean, I get along pretty well with Rich, and I've talked a lot in the past, brewing related things, and I've been on a trip to the States with he and Tracy and a few other brewers from around the place and a couple of suppliers. We went on a big trip a couple of years ago, and that was really good. It just, downtime away from everyone else and talking about beers. And I'd always, aspired to be able to brew beers. And it was one of the jokes we used to make in college when we go there. We were like, oh, one day we'll open a brewery. You guys can be the brewers. We'll have a chef there. We'll give you the money because we're studying finance. And it was always kind of a joke, but I was the only one who ever I kind of fell into brewing too. It was kind of like I was going to be the chef or something like that. So I studied in Hungary cooking at one point. But anyway, I got into brewing. And the range of beers that they had there was one of those things that, I believe that, for everything that I wanted to do with brewing has always been to have a great range of beers across a wide variety of styles. So it's not that I worked in breweries where we did some fairly regular styles as well, or just standard styles, and a lot of them. But I mean, the great thing about working at Stomping Ground is that we do so many different styles of beers. We don't tend to go as wild as what Chris and Gabby do. And I really admire what they do in terms of the foraging and harvesting of native ingredients and local ingredients to put in their beers. It's bloody awesome. And we've made a collab last year together. That was a lot of fun. But wide variety of styles and drinkability is always there. And that's always what I found at the Wig and Pen. So in that sense, that was kind of always the thing.
Yeah,
sorry,
great.
I dragged that on.
It's such a tasty beer. What do you guys think, Chris and Gab?
I love this beer. It's actually one of the few out where we are. There's not a great range of craft beer, but because it has such wide distribution, this beer, we can get it reasonably locally, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's still reasonably locally, being an hour and a half drive away. But
Fair.
I definitely love this beer.
Yeah,
it's funny because there's a lot of, I guess, there's a lack of fashion in this beer as well. There's a lot of elements in this beer, which maybe the low bitterness is a kind of more current thing, but there's a lovely kind of toffee caramel note in it, real deep hoppiness, a clarity. That's not a fashionable thing in beer, but it's just such a well-made beer.
Yeah.
If you sit on the shelf, you want to reach for it. So
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
So our next question for the night is a beer that you wish you made yourself. Chris and Gab, do you guys want to go first for that one?
Yep, sure. We'll just empty our glasses.
Yep. Down the hatches.
I'm scared of what's about to come. Actually, this is really pretty interesting, these next two.
I reckon this one is probably a lot of people's envious beer, White Mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have, I mean, we have a thing for low alcohol beers anyway.
Oh, I should have been wearing a White Mischief t-shirt.
Hang on.
Oh,
Ooh. That would move that.
That wasn't even set up. Gab didn't even know that.
Oh, jeez.
An outfit
I never actually
reveal.
looked at the label on this thing.
wow, how punchy.
Yeah. Yeah. A few people have noticed this when I wear the t-shirt, the rabbits fucking.
Oh, yeah. It took me a really long time to notice that.
Yeah.
I'd only just noticed that now for the first time. I've drank the beer before on tap and whatnot. I've never seen the can.
It's
Sorry,
such
I
a
don't get
solid
out much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've always loved Garage Project and just loved their sense of adventure, I guess. And this is a beer which we definitely wish we'd made. It is 2.9%. It is full of flavour. It is
Yeah.
salty, tart, drinkable, fruity.
It just like hits all the marks, and I mean, especially for us, like low alcohol beers are something that we really love.
Mhm.
But me especially, I just really cannot handle any beer, or don't like any beer above like a 6%.
Mhm.
So this one is just hits all the marks.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's very well, it's not that there's a fine line with beers that do a lot of things,
Yeah.
like being salty, sour, fruity.
Yeah.
They could turn into a kind of gimmick.
But it's so pretty.
And
It is a pretty beer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not mine. My moustache kills most head. So.
And it's just a beer I find too is just universally loved as well. Like anyone who's like, it's not for me. Like everyone who I've spoken to who's drunk this beer really enjoys it. And I think Garage Project does such a great job of,
They do.
like you said, making really interesting things, but they execute them very well as well.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be drinkable. Drinkability, you can do whatever you like in a beer. You can put whatever you like in a beer, but if it's doesn't have drinkability, then you
Totally.
kind of fail. I think, and they always have drinkability. So
Yeah. They're very good at it.
For sure. Is this one that you've drunk before much, Asher?
I've only had it on tap before, I think, it's
Okay.
when they've had it over in the country. But yeah, it's a bloody great beer. It's really nice.
Yeah.
That's why I must have seen the can from a distance, but I'd never actually paid attention to the can. It's quite good.
and you'd never go with 2.9%.
No.
It's something to do with, I mean, the style hides it well. Like saltiness gives your body that the low alcohol kind of would normally leave a hole, but
Yeah.
the saltiness really fills that in.
Yeah,
That's
for
a little
sure.
secret that you add salt to.
Yeah, if I feel I need body, I add salt, even if
Okay.
it's not indetectable.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Taking notes.
all learning. So you said that it's really something that's quite important to you is a lower alcohol. That is something that you really find important in brewing and in making beer. Why is that?
Yeah.
I think we both like low alcohol beers. Like you don't want to have like one beer and then just fall asleep. You want to maybe
Yeah.
have a couple and
There is a time and place for high alcohol beer, personally. Though.
no, I don't think
Not
so.
for Gab.
Belgium.
Yeah, Belgium.
I mean, I guess it's probably because we're old as well and have kids.
No, but it's
For me,
important.
it's more about the challenge of making low alcohol beers. It's hard to make a good low alcohol beer that is satisfying.
Yeah.
Like the more alcohol you put in a beer, the more flavour it can carry in a lot of ways, and the more mouthfeel you immediately get and weight. And the challenge of making a low alcohol beer, and I've made some pretty thin low alcohol beers in my time.
Yeah.
The challenge of making a good one is I think it's a good one.
Yeah, for
Also,
sure.
that low and no alcohol beer is just going to be such a massive market in the future. So, like, it's really something that I'm incredibly fascinated with, and
Yeah.
like, we will definitely be exploring it more in the future.
Mhm.
And, yeah, like, I just think people are more health conscious, and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I'm sure nobody who's listening in right now believes in zero alcohol beer, but you never know.
I don't know.
You never know. I mean, it's something that I've noticed this year is there's been, and last year as well, such an interest and a growing interest in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it is that thing of, I think especially like being Good Beer Week now, I always think there's so many beers that I want to try, and especially like if you go to pubs and you're trying 40 different beers. I'm always conscious of being like, I want to try everything, but at the same time, no one can drink 40 beers.
Yeah. Well, you can, but then you'll make something embarrassing happen.
This is very true. This is very true.
Either that or have some unwanted children.
No child is unwanted.
Oh, okay, good. Of course. God, shouldn't have said that.
On the other side of the low alcohol, though, like, I think like a high alcohol beer that like hides it well is like a really well crafted beer.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
when I was at the Havana, like, I went on a search for like hazies for under 6% or under, and like, you know, didn't find many, but like, when you have like a high alcohol beer, but you can't taste that burn or that hot, you know, boozy, like, I just think that's a well crafted beer to me.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I agree.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's pretty delicious. Shall we move on to the next one? Are you guys ready?
Yep, I suppose.
Sorry, we can slow down. I'm rushing you with your drinking.
No, we're doing all right, actually. Where are we at? We're going okay.
Yeah.
We could have lingered on that for a little bit longer, that one.
It's pretty tasty. We can always come back to it, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very drinkable beer. I think that there's something about adding fruit in those low ABV sours that also, it adds a textural feel on the mouth. Even though they finish light in terms of gravity and density, there's still something textural you get from fruit, which I don't know the science behind it, but I know it's there.
Yeah.
And that's certainly there in that beer.
For sure.
The white peach, I think, is the secret there as well. I don't know, like, because in our pavlova we use like yellow peaches and it's like, I don't know, it just tastes a lot different to that. Like,
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Next,
You get such a distinct flavour from the white peach in that, I think.
Yeah.
Nice one.
So, tell us about the beer you wish you brewed.
This is the Rockford 8. I love this beer. I love all of the Rockford beers, but Rockford 8 and Rockford 10. I mean, Rockford 10's a masterpiece as well, but this one, I don't know whether you want to talk about drinkability because they're both at a fairly high percentage, but I think they both have really good drinkability. But this one is just so good. I just love it. I think the colour is beautiful. The fact that it's got a very light coloured head is really interesting because they've got such a depth of colour and flavour within the beer that it doesn't really present in the foam. But I started getting back in, getting into beer pretty heavily. Like, I was always drinking in high school. Don't tell the cops.
I think you're safe now.
I'm fine
you'll
now.
be okay.
But got to uni and obviously there was a fairly strong drinking culture there. But the group of friends that I had were all interested in wine as well and drinking more than just, pints of swill at the pub. And we were all exploring Belgian beers at the time. And Belgian beers were one of the the beers that you could get. You could get a decent variety of Belgian beers in Australia in the early 2000s, and it was, it wasn't just Stellas and Heinekens and whatnot, but they were premium beers. You could get quite a few Belgian beers, and then the Belgian beer cafes opened up, and so that opened up a wider experience for all of us. And one of the guys at college worked in one of the Belgian beer cafes, and not that I ever tried this here, but I've tried it a lot, in the last 10 years, and I just love it as a beer.
Yeah.
I've always loved Belgian beers. There's something, there's a really high degree of drinkability, even with the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Gab might disagree.
No, I actually love this beer, and it doesn't.
So good.
It doesn't have that hot, boozy. It's really super delicious. I like it a lot.
It's so figgy.
Oh, the dark fruits and the dried fruits, fig is beautiful. Oh.
But not in a heavy way. That is mastery of this beer. There's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of flavour and sugariness and caramel toffee and dried fruit.
But it's not sickly in any way.
No, and it doesn't overwhelm you at all. I think that's really important. Yeah.
I've never had this beer, I don't think.
Oh, really?
I don't think so, no.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So
That was a very wankerish thing to say.
So in terms of how this would have affected, like if this is a beer that you wish you brewed, do you feel like any of the beers that you are brewing currently or anything that you're working towards?
I've actually, when I drank a lot of this in the years before we opened up the venue at Stomping Ground, the brewery and the venue. And since we've opened, I've tried to do a few Belgian beers. I love to do more of them, and there are a few people in Australia that do them really well. Namely, Sean Sherlock, who was at Murray's many years ago, and now is at Foghorn in Newcastle. He's kind of in my belief, he's out of the people who brew Belgian beers in Australia. I think the beers of his that I've tasted, and I haven't by any means tasted everyone's Belgian beers, they've been the best. They've been the standouts. Okay. He does it so well. So I've asked him a lot about what he's done in the past, tasted a lot of his beers, and they're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And when we opened up, I had a lot of questions about the yeasts that he used, and he was fairly open with that and helpful. And I've tried to do things that have been similar to this, and I think I've had some pretty good results. It hasn't been quite as close as I'd like it to be, but I've tried to do it a couple of times and haven't.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all right, but it's not bad. But yeah, so we've done a Belgian dark strong and a Belgian golden strong.
Okay.
We used to call one arch nemesis and one arch fiend. So the arch fiend was the Belgian golden strong, and the arch nemesis was Belgian dark strong.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of having a bit of play with words like they do in Belgium when they've a lot of these bigger beers, they've got sort of demonic names that are associated with them because even though they're great, wonderful things, they make you, I don't know whether they make you do demonic things or not. They've never done that with me, but that's always kind of been associated with big Belgian beers. But yeah, we've done those a few times and they've turned out pretty well. But it's in making the first time I made Arch Fiend, which is the Belgian golden strong, so lighter coloured than this, a lot lighter coloured. I'll probably put more work into researching how to make that, not just the ingredients, but ferment profiles than I've done with anything else, because it's so important with ferment in those beers that you step the temperature as it goes, and you don't want to knock the yeast out too early. Yep. And you've got to control that ester and fusel alcohol production the whole way through. It's like the first weekend I brewed it, I was in there every 6 hours changing the temperature, like changing the set temp of the tanks so that it didn't chill too much, it didn't get too hot. It was a really stressful weekend, but the result was great.
Yeah.
What did you start at, Asher?
On that one, started at 18.
Yeah.
So slightly different. And I've spoken to Sean, I think he starts a degree higher than that. But then, slowly step it up from there. And that was kind of somewhere in between what I'd spoken to him about and what I'd read out of Brew Like a Monk, which is, it's not a thick text, but it's a great book. I think it's Stan Hieronymus, I think.
Yep.
It's such a good book. Yeah, and it goes through Rockford and a lot of the major breweries in Belgium and how they do it, and a lot of them have been fairly open with what they do.
Yeah.
They don't give you full details on the ingredients and stuff, and that's fine. You should work that out for yourself. But started at 18 and step it up, and it gets to a max of 26 at the very end, but spends most of its time fermenting it around between 18 and 24. But I'm very hesitant to chill it later on.
Okay. How do you feel that people who buy your beer have reacted to these beers, this kind of style? Because I feel like it is, again, something that maybe not everyone is drinking every day. What's kind of the reception to that been like?
No, well, I reckon, and this is one of the things that kind of alluded to it before. 20 years ago, not quite. Bloody dogs, shut up. About nearly 20 years ago, the beers that you could buy a lot of that were, really interesting and different from the norm were Belgian beers. If they weren't German lagers or things like Guinness and Kilkenny, they were Belgian, and so. People were more used to drinking those types of beers. I mean, wit beers, a lot of the craft brewers from the early 2000s were brewing wit beers and Belgian blondes. They were pretty regular. So back then it was probably more common. Now it's not. And so people see Belgian and they don't really want to drink it as much, and they probably they wouldn't be as adventurous. But, Juicy's the thing now, or an IPA is the thing now. But, 10 years ago, people weren't drinking IPAs. So we might have a renaissance on it, but people who know what it is and
maybe
like
this will bring it back.
Yeah, maybe. How much of it do you sell? You sell it at Blackguards, right?
Yeah, we sell a decent amount.
Mm.
I think a surprising amount of interest in it, just across the board in Belgian beers. Quite a lot of interest in it, and I think it's great. Like, I think it's really, really great. It's a different customer though. Like, it's
absolutely.
I noticed that it's a different customer. Sorry.
An older male customer.
That is the customer. That is the exact customer.
Wears silly hats.
That is the customer.
Tweed coats. Smokes a pipe.
It's as if you have met him.
I am him.
Oh.
Maybe you have been him.
We've made, there's certain beers that we make that we would really love to make more of. And they don't sell really well, but they do sell very strongly to a certain group of people who love that style of beer. And I wish they were a bigger group, to be honest, I wish they were a bigger group because I love those styles of beers.
Yeah, what sort of beers?
Anything dark.
Yeah.
Predominantly.
Okay.
On the more malty spectrum.
Yeah, anything malt driven. Anything malt driven and dark definitely will sell less, but have a more fanatical following.
Okay.
At the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, we used to do an alt beer as part of our core range, Southern Right.
I love that beer.
And I love that beer too.
Sold 1 to 3 of the rest of the core range, so we kind of reluctantly stopped it. But when we did, we got so much protest from people who love that style, and just not the loudest voice.
No.
Also, the colour beer we did with you, like the root beer, which I just love that beer. Like, I'm gonna have to come and buy some, probably back off you.
I have some really bad news for you. There is any.
You're always.
I think it's all sold.
Oh, well, that's kind of good.
It's a good thing. But unfortunately, I loved that beer too. I really enjoyed that beer. That was actually...
Yeah, but I think in terms of the collabs that we've done, I think that one probably sold the slowest, maybe.
Yeah, okay. No, I would agree, but then there was people who just, kind of the same, who just loved it. And I was people.
I want to see sales records. I want to see what beers, out of all the beer styles and everything, what sells the most. I find that with things.
I'm sure anything with fruit could sell.
Yeah, pretty high. All the hazies at the moment.
How did your oyster stout sell? Because I love that beer. That was
such a good beer.
Oh, that's a really solid beer for us, and we have a lot of customers asking when's the next oyster beer.
Yeah.
At the same time, if you watch the sale pattern of it, sorry to get into sales, but it will not be like a rush and jump. It'll be like a steady feast, but we could keep making it and it would keep selling that one. But it wouldn't be like a hypey beer in a way. It would just be just a really solid. Everybody remembers that beer and loves that beer.
It's in the tank. It'll be out.
Yeah, it's in the tank.
A week or two.
Do
Fantastic.
you eat the oysters after you've had them in there?
Ooh.
No, we shuck and or hammer, depending on how gnarled the oysters are.
Such a
80
job.
dozen oysters. And the juice and the shell and the flesh all goes in the whirlpool, and it's pretty. You don't want to eat it after that.
How do you get it out?
It goes to the chalk.
We bag it. We bag it and put it.
Oh, okay, right.
So, and the liquid we catch and pour in, and
So it goes to our chalks afterwards because like chalks need shell grit to like make the shells really hard. So like the dad crushes it up and feeds it to the chalks.
That's some really gourmet chickens you have there, having their oysters for dinner. They're looked after pretty well.
Nice glass of Chardonnay with it as well.
Yeah. That's another beer style too that I find is impossible to find. I wanted something, some oyster stouts for a little pack that we were putting together of beers to drink with oysters, and we had a saison, a lager, and I wanted an oyster stout. And I, apart from yours, and I think Garage Project has one, I couldn't find any.
Three Brothers do one out of New Zealand as well.
Okay.
Three Brothers? No, it is Three Brothers, yeah.
Three brothers.
Three boys. It's got three stick figures on the label.
You don't know.
Hard to say.
It's funny because oyster stout it's not like a foreign term, but it's more associated with beers that don't actually have oysters in them, but are called oyster stout.
Yeah.
And Boat Rocker does a beer.
Oh yeah, Boat Rocker does.
Yeah.
Oh, they do, don't they? That's right. In the 500 ml.
I mean, we just love ours because of our relationship with, I don't know, like the relationship with like Shane from Up and Go is just like
The
such
oyster
a
farmer, yeah.
solid connection. And actually we had oysters from him when you were down.
That's right. Oh, God, that was a good weekend.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a weekend. It was the start of the week, actually. It was great.
Who could tell?
And also the story behind that beer, like, you know, of the label is just like, I don't know, such a kind of amazing story about the killer whales and the lore of the tongue. And I love that beer.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to drinking it again. Speaking of beers you love to make, that segues us nicely into our next beer, which is the beer that you are proud of, that you've made. So
It's a bit hard to follow right before though, but anyway.
No, I'm pretty excited about this, actually.
So we probably need to do a little bit of background on this one because, like, it is called Rhubarb Harvest Ale.
Mm-hmm.
But in its past, and it's been called Summer Farmhouse Ale, which had the whale on it. And so it's essentially the same beer, but we found that every time you put like a season on it, like summer or spring, people wouldn't drink it outside of that month.
Yes, that's a thing.
And for us it was the best of summer, so you would make it at the end of summer with the best of summer and release it after summer.
Yeah.
And people would say, it's not summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said that, like, you know, in America as well, like, you know, people release pumpkin beers, but it's not pumpkins. Like, they make pumpkin concentrate or whatever at the start of, you know, that season.
Yeah.
When really you should be making it at the end of the season and it should be an expression of that season. And it's just, you know, like, I think that's something that is pretty important to us. This is like, you know, this is an expression of that season. But anyway, I will stop. That 90.
No, go on.
The 90 minutes.
Get in.
I guess the reason why
amazing.
the reason why we're the most proud of this beer is probably not anything to do with technique or finesse in the beer. It's more to do, it encompasses everything we love about making a beer. It's a beer that we collaborate with mates on. We don't brew with beer yeast, we brew with Chardonnay leaves from Lightfoot & Sons Winery.
Also your mates.
Yes.
6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, I know. We used local fruit from our farm, Gab's. Gab's family farm.
So rhubarb and some strawberries from our farm, but also like other farms that we know and we always work with.
It also uses foraged fennel pollen. It uses grain that is grown locally in Gippsland that we actually had to get malted up in New South Wales, but that's a work in progress. We'll hopefully be able to malt the local grain locally at some point.
Yeah.
So it has. That's why I think we're proud of, more than the beer itself, it's about the relationships and the ingredients that go into the beer and the playfulness of flavours as well. I mean, for me, it's not, partly it's my moustache, it's not a perfect beer. There's something about fermenting on wine lees that produces amazing flavours, but also, technically not perfect beers at the same time. It's very drinkable. It has this great balance of flavours and a creaminess. It's a dry beer. It has a creaminess from the lees, which is really yummy.
And also the fennel pollen creates just, I don't know, for me it's all about the fennel pollen. It just works with that strawberries and rhubarb flavour. And it's just I love foraging fennel pollen because it's just it grows all over the roadsides and we dry it out and in the end you get this gold dust.
Yeah.
And it's it smells amazing and the flavour is just so beautiful. And,
the aroma on that is nuts.
Yeah, it's not like fennel seed or fennel bulb, which has a really kind of almost harsh flavour. Fennel pollen has that aniseed character, but it's creamy as well. It's it's gentle.
It's so fresh. It's beautiful.
Do you reckon, just as a bit of an aside and a bit of a geek out, do you reckon that you must have a bit of wild yeast on that fennel pollen that you're foraging as well that must contribute to the beer?
Yeah, we try and not use the wild. We've done a barrel with fennel yeast. But in this, what you're drinking right now, we try and eliminate that.
Okay.
There is a bit of...
I do dehydrate it, so...
Yeah, it's dehydrated.
there's always a risk, but yeah.
There is definitely, in the lees, a little bit of wildness. We get a bit of acidity that develops with the ferment from the lees. Even though I'm sure there's an element of sulphur in their process, we definitely get some lactic acid production through when working with lees. So,
Kids are in the background. Oh, it's a beautiful beer. I love the colour of it, and I love the contrast in flavour in terms of the aroma over the palate. It's bloody wonderful.
Very gentle.
It really is. The smell is all fennel, but you're right. It's not the same as chewing into a fennel seed or a piece of fennel. It's somewhat more delicate than that, even though it's quite strong, but the flavour on the palate's a lot more delicate. And you do get the fruit and the rhubarb.
For sure.
The rhubarb must add a bit of texture as well because that has sort of a spinachy sort of... What's the acid?
I don't know, but yeah.
Is that a technical bell that tells us to stop?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
I
think we're good. Do you dry the fennel pollen? Why do you dehydrate the fennel pollen? Is there...
just has a kind of green character to it, but once it's dehydrated, it has a kind of more essential flavour, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I dehydrate it in the hope that it does kind of kill off any wild bacteria.
Yeah. And did you try it previously without dehydrating and finding that you needed to do that, or is it just what you did?
You have to dry it to for it to fall off. When it's fresh, it's sticky.
Yeah.
So to dry it so it's so the pollen actually falls off the flower.
Yeah, makes sense. For sure.
But there is also a green kind of astringent character which is removed, I think, by the drying.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's such a good beer. I feel like it's a very unexpected beer too, because you have so many different flavors. And I think sometimes when you see a beer and you're like, oh, rhubarb, strawberry, fennel, it can be a bit like, how's this going to work? But they just marry together so beautifully in that beer.
They really do.
We have a local builder that just, I think he comes and picks up like a slab every
Yeah, he's been picking up every week since we started our online store. He's like, he stopped even ordering online. He turns up and says, I'll put the order through online later, mate. Just give me the...
That's so great. That's so good.
We've run out now, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Such a fantastic beer. I feel like I really like that it does seem to kind of sum up a lot of what you're about as well, and a lot of your kind of philosophies. And it seems like a lot of your philosophies in how you run your business and how you brew beer and what you're about. And I think that's really cool. And I don't know, that's what I like about kind of doing this event is you get to see, this person is so reflected in this beer, and I think that's really lovely too, because I think sometimes you forget you're drinking tasty beer and you forget that it's like that someone's like thought up, and it's a recipe they've thought up, and there's so much technical detail that goes into that, but there's so much of like who you are as people and like why you would make something as a person that goes into it, which I think is really lovely.
And your relationships with other people are in the beer as well.
Definitely. Yeah, fantastic. All right, shall we go on to the last beer?
Hop Stomper.
Hop Stomper. Let's do it.
So we're called Stomping Ground, and we named the beer Hop Stomper. There was a bit of worry about when we named this beer, whether it was going to be conjure up images of a film made in the, I don't know whether it was the 70s or 80s, but anyway, hopefully that hasn't happened. So this beer is probably one of my favourite beers that I've made, and the reason for it is kind of, I alluded to it before, that trip that we went on in the States, where it was a group of brewers and a supplier who sort of organised the trip, and we went to Hop Harvest, and this is going to be a familiar story for Gab and Chris. I told it the other night because, strangely enough, this beer was used against some wild, wonderful brews that were on the Ale Stars event. But we went on this event. We went on this trip where it was, a Hop Harvest, and in the States and in Europe as well, and then it ended up being Oktoberfest and Drink Tech, which is a huge drink sort of conference that's held every 4 years in Germany. Anyhow, Hop Harvest is just such a wonderful time. I don't know whether anyone's been to a hop field before or even knows what hops are. Hops, they're the flowering plant of a climbing vine that add the bitterness and the juicy fruit flavour and aroma in a lot of beers. I mean, unless you're adding fruit itself. Traditionally, they're used for bittering as well as a preservative, but in America, and particularly in the Northwest, it's a huge industry, and a lot of farming in places like Washington State and Oregon is dedicated to hop growing. And harvest time is crazy. Like harvest time anywhere. I grew up in a rural area in northern New South Wales. I don't know whether you can tell from my accent or not, but I love harvest time. It's bloody great. Like there's a real buzz in the air. People have grown something, they've produced something, and it's on a scale, and then you're harvesting and you're ripping it off, and you're trying to get it off as soon as possible, and you've got to get it off the field, and it's like there's a real buzz to it all, and there was this energy in the air when we were there, and everyone was so proud of what they were doing, and it's a big part of what American beer is and what it means to the rest of the world. It was a really, really great experience to see how well they do it, and how concerned they are with getting the hops off the field and making sure that they get into the kilns, or to the picking rooms in the kilns as quickly as possible, to make them dried as quickly as possible, to chill, to then pelletise so that they are as fresh as they can possibly be. And the smells and aromas that you get out of those, and even flavours. By the end of the day, you're just covered in hop oil when you've been walking around the fields and through the picking rooms and stuff, and you kind of end up smelling cheesy, which isn't great. But the smells and flavours are just so strong, and it's kind of hard to capture and hard to get someone to understand it, I suppose, if they haven't seen it. But it's not dissimilar to going to any sort of big processing plant where you think, right, cool, think of what it's like to be immersed in that smell. Anyway, from the States, we went to Europe, where things are done on a bit of a smaller scale. Still really interesting, small scale, small plot farmers, a little bit slower to move, a bit more traditional, less concentration on fruit and juiciness, and but still a really long history of growing hops, a longer history of growing hops than America. And we went to the Hop Museum in Hallertau, and in the Hop Museum, they had like a mannequin that was sort of half out of the ground, that had Hessian sack and a hole in the floor, and a lot of hops around him. And basically the idea used to be that instead of a mechanical or hydraulic press to press the hop flowers or cones into a bag, they used to use a person who had these flat leather padded shoes, and they'd stomp the hops down as tight as they could into this big Hessian sack, and they were called the hop stomper. And when we went to this museum, oh, God, that's a great name for a beer. And I said, that's not my name for a beer. I'm going to use that name when we go straight away because of the stomping ground connection. And one of the things that we all discussed after that trip, we tasted a lot of beer in the States and a lot of beer in Europe and a lot of really good lagers in Europe. But what it came down to, what it boiled down to was that, you know, what I really want out of a hoppy American style IPA is clarity of hop flavour and clarity of malt flavour, and just to get as much in there, stomp as much in there, I suppose, if you will, without, you know, and still give it a balanced flavour. And we use a few different hop products in this beer. And originally it was just something that I brewed pretty much as soon as I got back. We got a gift pack sent to us from YCH of different hop products. They sent us all these different hop products and said, try these out in a beer. And they all happened to be, from that harvest time, the same hops that we were seeing come off the field, which were Mosaic, Simcoe, Equinaut, and, well, there was Cascade as well, and Mosaic, Simcoe, Equinaut, Cascade, and Citra. We were there over those days because they harvest on particular days for certain hops.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, used those hops in the beer and made this beer, and it was an instant hit. Wasn't cloudy. I'm not into hazies as much as you guys said you were before. I don't mind them. I like them, but I'm not one of those people that goes berserk over them. And made this beer, and it was an instant hit. And we decided, well, as soon as we get a canning line, we're going to package this beer, which we did. But yeah, I love it. It's one of my go-to beers at work. Mm-hmm. It's one of the beers I buy cans of a lot of. I just love it.
Yeah.
So in the end, what other hops would be like, what are your...
Equinox, Simcoe.
Oh, so it's the original hops, was it?
Yeah,
Not. You were saying the other night you've dropped the Cascade, but
I dropped the Cascade out of it. Yeah, so we used Cascade, but yeah, the reason I dropped the Cascade out was kind of, there was a supply issue for a time, and then there was, you know, these things are grown seasonally, so they vary season to season, and I found there was a bit too much seasonal variability with Cascade. I love it as a hop. It's one of the old school American craft beer hops. It's not as popular now as it would be, you know, 20 years ago, but it's still one of my favourite hops, and I use it across all range of styles of beers. But it's, when it's on, it's on, and when it's not, it's not. So it's kind of, and that's the problem. So many people grow it, but there is a bit of variability with quality that comes out, whereas the others are a bit more sort of unique in where they're grown, and they're really specific people who grow them and areas that grow them. So they're less of a commodity hop. Anyhow, so yeah, we swapped out the Cascade. So that's Equinaut, Simcoe, Citra, and Mosaic.
Mm-hmm. So
it is so
the first beers. Sorry, you go.
Oh no, sorry. I just wanted to compliment Asher on it. It is so clean.
It is
so saturated at the same time, and only 6%. Like really hard to saturate at alcohol level. Amazing, really. Yeah, really good. I love that deep saturation of hop.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Was this one of the first beers that you canned, or? It
was the second beer we canned, actually. So
okay.
we canned. We might have done a seasonal before it, I must say, but we did Gibb Street first, and the second beer that we started packaging was the Hop Stomper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty successful. It's a fair makeup of what we do. We do a fair range of beers, like as a core range. Then we do a few seasonals, not as many seasonals I think as perhaps what Chris and Gab do. yeah, we've got our cores, and this is now a solid one of the cores.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you.
A couple of questions just coming through. I think this one's for Chris and Gab. Someone wanted to know if there's any ingredients you'd love to forage and try and use that you haven't used yet.
Do they know of any ingredients?
You guys have been pretty thorough.
We are open to foraging any ingredient, really.
Yeah.
Did you end up using, like, this is a suggestion that Gab had for us when we were talking about a collaboration we were going to do years ago with, or probably not years ago now, everything seems like years ago. Current weird time, a week seems like a month. You were talking about using gorse bush and the flowers and the pollen from gorse. Did you ever make a beer with that?
No, actually that's a really good point. That one fell off the radar. We would still love to do that because gorse has what, like a kind of pineapple-y flavour?
Oh, that's so
Coconut,
funny.
pineapple.
That's so funny that you mentioned that because, like, I was just thinking today that I really want to revisit that beer with you guys.
Yeah, well, I'll keep my eye out for when they're flowering again.
It can't be worse than the prickly pear.
It's got to be better than harvesting that. That was
That
bloody
was
awful.
shit.
No, I think it's pretty similar. But, like, we don't have any gorse down here, which is a good thing because gorse is like a noxious weed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
There's heaps on the outskirts of Melbourne, whether you're going north or whether you're going towards Ballarat. Those higher areas, more elevation, you
Down
get
in that
sense with
market,
it.
there's heaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Nice one. There you go.
Well, before we wrap it up, is there anything that either of you are currently working on now that you would like to share or talk about, or what's in the works at the moment for both of you?
We're doing a collaboration with Gurney's Cider. Gurney's are a great bunch of cider makers from Fish Creek near Wilson's Prom. Mainly wild ferment ciders. So they bought down half a tank of cider. We mixed it with half a tank of wort. The other week, all the yeast is whatever was on the cider, on the apples. It's exciting. It's smelling a bit out of control, I have to say, in the brewery today. But I'm hoping it comes back into control. But
Okay.
it's a tank ferment, but it's a total wild ferment. So we'll see how it turns out. But I'm excited by it.
Yeah, sounds fantastic.
What type of apples were they?
Sturma Pippin.
Stir, Pippin, Golden Delicious.
Matsu.
And
wild foraged apples. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Cool.
And yourself, Asher?
I don't really have anything as interesting as that, I must say. But I mean, we've since lockdown and whatnot, we had a bunch of beers in tank that were destined for keg, and most of what we do is, well, actually, it's probably about half and half. What we do is keg and can. So we decided to put a lot of beers in can, and then more recently we've said, okay, cool, what else can we put in can? Whereas the idea before was to try and not put as much in can. So we've got one of our cores, the brown ale, which is going into can, which a lot of the brewers love. I mean, most brewers you speak to, they want a dark beer in can or in bottle to take home because that's what a lot of us drink, either that or a Pilsner or some type of lager. So, yeah, we're doing our brown ale in can, which a lot of people are excited about, down our red IPA in can. And we've got a low ABV pineapple IPA on the way. One that we've done before, but it's lower ABV than that. The Piney Dancer. Did you guys have that?
Yeah.
So it's a tiny pony.
Great.
Really clever, right? Yeah, so that'll be coming out soon.
Oh, sounds fantastic. Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for coming and having a chat tonight and talking about the beers that you make and what you're about. And yeah, thank you. Really.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thanks for having us.
No,
yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, enjoy the rest of your night. I'm pretty sure Nick from Molly Rose has an event that is starting now, so we should go.
Excellent.
So everyone can go watch him. Yeah, I'll talk to you all soon.
No worries. See you.
Right. See you later.
Bye. See you guys. Bye. I'm in.